What is up, guys? Ivan here with getivan.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys what I did recently to assemble my new PC using NewEgg, and I'm also going to show you a pre-built retail PC which is comparable to the one that I built on NewEgg and actually a little bit cheaper. I think the days are coming swiftly when we're going to just be able to buy high quality PCs from retail markets without paying markups for assembly services or for bloated hardware and so on and so forth. So I'm capable of assembling my own PC, but I much prefer to have it ready to go. So let me show you guys what I did to do this recently. So over here on Newegg, now first of all, I spent an entire day, and by day I don't just mean like, from 9 to 5. I was like up from, early morning till late at night. Then I fell asleep, woke up a few hours later, then I was up all night and half the day, and I spent hours scouring through websites trying to figure out what's the best way to get the most hardware for my buck. And I looked at Newegg, and then I looked at Micro Center. I even went to try to look at Fry's, but it turns out Fry's went out of business this past year because of COVID. And I looked at Amazon for retail kits. I looked at custom services. It all kind of led me back to Newegg. Excuse me. I assembled the parts, had the service assemble it for me. Or I picked the parts, I shopped for the parts, I had their service assemble it for me, and then I got it in the mail today. So this is the computer here. This will be my last video on my old machine. This machine I'm on is like 10 years old. Intel quad-core processor, 3 gigahertz, 16 gigs of RAM. This one, AMD Ryzen 5000 series, 6 cores, 12 threads, 3.7 gigahertz. Much better than what I had before, and much be better than even my VPS machines. And this is basically not really something I'm going to be doing processing on necessarily. It's really just like a tab machine, just something to allow me to have more tabs and more software open at the same time without having rendering issues or issues of speed between trying to do a whole bunch at the same time. So this is really like my workstation for being able to access all this other stuff I'm going to be doing. You can see here Geforce Rtx graphics card. Excuse me. There's a Cooler Master heatsink there. And you know what? This processor actually comes with a heatsink. But the problem is at Newegg, they make you order a heatsink in order to qualify for the assembly service. So this right here is an extra $40 that you don't, or sorry, not this right here. This right here, this heatsink is an extra $40 you don't really need to spend because you could just use the heatsink that the processor comes with. And so there's a way you could save a little bit of money. The case is $80. We'll get to all that. This was just kind of the most popular cheap case. One thing I don't like about it is that the buttons are on top, which means if you set stuff on top of your computer, you could easily reset your computer by accident by pressing that button. But most of it is just the cheapest options I could pick that also included, assembly, because I just really didn't want to assemble it myself. Every time you assemble a tower, you always have to deal with some little thing and some little nook that you're trying to mess around with, and it can be so tedious. Like even when I opened this and took the packing materials out of the tower center, one of these like heatsink brackets just snapped off, and I had to sit there for like 10 minutes and try to like carefully attach it back on. I just didn't want to do it, and so that's another reason why I wanted to make sure I get the assembly service. So one of the issues with their utility, it's not designed very well in that you have to assemble your computer, and then if it qualifies, then you can check off this button for the PC assembly service. Of course, if you're choosing from all the various hardware that's available to Newegg, a large percentage of it is not going to qualify for the assembly service. And so that's kind of dumb that they have it set up like that. You have to go to the FAQ, and then, excuse me, at the very bottom of the FAQ, it says, hey, if you're having issues, click this link. So you click this link, and it opens up a special PC builder area that only shows you products that are compatible with the service. So that was a really useful thing I discovered, and all too late, of course, because I spent ages picking out just the perfect hardware, and then I figured out, it doesn't qualify. So there's two. Man, there's so much I could say about these processors, guys, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but at first I was building. I'll just kind of cover the basics. From the highest level stuff to the lowest level, it's a difference of roughly $250. So you kind of got to say, do I want the very best and I want to spend an extra $250 for it, or does it really not matter that much? It depends on your use case. If you're gaming, then maybe you want something a little better. Probably if you're gaming, you probably want to get the i7 range of processors. It's kind of the middle of the road. I was trying to get the i9. I just kind of said to myself, I want the very best of the best. But I went back later on and I just said, you know what? Let's look at some of these benchmarks. Let's look at the cheapest and compare the Ryzen 5 with the i7 and the i5 and all these various things. And it turns out that this AMD Ryzen 5 is like the best processor for the money. It's extremely efficient, 6 cores, 3.7 gigahertz. It's fine. It's overkill for a great many things. So there's also a new variation here, which doesn't have a lot of reviews yet. It's actually cheaper, and you can see it's 3.9 gigahertz core clock. But I went ahead and selected this one. It had a lot of good reviews. It was the cheapest. Under motherboard, I had like a few options, but recently I was looking at this. They only give you a couple. This is the mini, and this is the full a full version, and I went ahead and chose this one. Or this one may not be the same as the one that I have. It might be. Something I also did, guys, is I clicked on these and I made sure that there was a graphic, and it was a relatively recent board. In some cases, for some of this hardware, I looked real carefully at some of this stuff. Under specs in particular, I always look at the date first available. This can be changed apparently, because I did find some hardware that said it was new and it was actually like 4 years old or something. So some guys are going in there and changing the date to try to get people's attention, but you probably don't want to order anything too new, because the markups are probably higher in the beginning, and after a little time goes on with computer hardware, the price drops, and there's also more time to see what the reviews bring, and if there's issues software wise, it gives them time to patch those problems. So it's generally good to order within the last couple years, and nothing too necessarily new, because then you might run into some problems. This area might be good to look at. Make sure it's got the right ports and things. Not everything has Wi-Fi, for example. So if you need Wi-Fi, you need to make sure that your motherboard supports Wi-Fi. And there might be other things too, like Bluetooth. Like you can get a dongle from the store to add Bluetooth to anything, though. So something to keep in mind. But anyways, went ahead and selected that motherboard. After you do that, you'll probably want to select the case, because it's not always sequential. In some cases, I was running into glitches where it was saying, this case is not compatible with your hardware or something. So this is kind of where I would select the case. The one I really kind of wanted was this one right here, Fantex Enthoo Pro. And this one is, because it's labeled as a full tower, and I much prefer the full tower. But the difference in the full tower is not like the height. It's just like a little bit of length. It's like this much length. So if this is my mid size, and the full size would be like this. So it's, and you can't see inside of this machine very easily because of, I don't have the glass taken off, but there's a huge amount of room. Like the computer's only like this big, literally. And the motherboard with all the core hardware is like, it's like this big. Okay. And there's like this much space inside a mid-sized tower. So the mid-sized tower is actually plenty large. It's the same height as a typical tower. I ended up just electing for cost savings, so I went with this one. And like I showed you, there's some downsides to it. Some of the mesh areas are a little bit flimsy, but the case is steel and the side of it is tempered glass, so it also looks quality. Anyways, went with that. Pardon me. Then under RAM, let's go for RAM. And we don't have a lot of options here, which is fine because you really just want to go with this one here. There's, with some of the stuff, like you can spend an extra $50 or something and get something that's like twice as powerful or has more, can do more operations, but you don't really need it. So you got to think about diminishing returns. You know, you're spending an extra $50 for something, 25 or 50% more powerful or something like that, but it's already super powerful to begin with. The most people are not going to need that little extra push. So if you spend $50 on every piece here to get a little more power, you're going to end up spending another few $100s, and it makes the price shoot up quite a lot. So let's go to video cards. This is like the core cost of your machine. Like, it's crazy to me. The video cards are now more expensive than any other piece of hardware. The average is probably about $800. You used to be able to get a nice machine for like $800. Now that's how much a video card, a lot of these nicer ones, cost. So I was able to get one that's in this series, the Geforce Rtx 3060 series. So basically, a lot of these companies are taking these core cards and they're putting fans on them. They're doing their own variations or versions of these various cards, right? So you can see EVGA makes some variation of a card, some variation of the GeForce RTX 360 card, right? So if you were to look at various versions of those cards that companies are putting out, you would probably find them to be largely similar. Like, look at some of these. Like this one here is a Radeon RX 6900, and so is this one. But these are two different companies. This is Asus, this is Sapphire, and this one's $2,400 and this one's $2,550. So it's obviously going to vary why one is more or less than another, but the difference is what the manufacturer is doing with the base card. And this right here is a really stable card. This is the one that I have in my machine, except it's made by Asus. And instead of having 3 fans, it has one micro turbine powered fan. It's not an actual turbine, but it's Asus made a variation of the RTX 360 that has one single fan. And so it was cheaper for me to get that. I don't remember exactly how much. It may have been 400. It was somewhere in this range. Could look at the cart in a second, but anyways, this one also has 8 gigs of RAM, and the Asus one had 12. So obviously, I went with that one. Now that doesn't mean it was better, because when you look at some of the details, particularly on specs, you can kind of see like under the memory interface and under some of these details that they'll often oftentimes, even if it'll have lower RAM, it'll be higher performing in some other capacity. You might want to look on here at the HDMI ports. Like if you want to plug 2 monitors into the card, then you might want to get something with 2, but you can plug one into your motherboard and one into your graphics card. But anyways, that might be something you want to look at. But and this is pretty new, but in terms of costs, like see, this one is cheaper, so you could cut costs here. But the problem is this card is old. If you look here, it's from 2016. So it just depends on what you need. It only has 4 gigs of RAM. I don't necessarily need a gaming card, and for most, workstation purposes, you really wouldn't. But I kind of decided I wanted to get something a little better because, of graphic editing programs being open or being slow, or video editing needs, or just having a bunch of videos and tabs open and needing to be able to process a lot of different things at a time. A lot of times things will slow down because you can't process things graphically, in an ideal manner. So I elected to get one in the 500 range. Now you could save a couple $100 and get one here, and you'd probably be fine. But if your graphics card has a VGA port, it's probably way too old, So I would just say no to those options. Let's see. This one says 2016, and then where are the ports? All right, maybe not. I thought it had a VGA. There looks like a VGA port there. Maybe it's something else. Wish they had better pictures. Anyways, so you could cut costs and get a weaker card, but I elected to get something in this range. Let's look at the power supply. Here you could save $30 and you could get this one right here, this Cooler Master, and it's got plenty of power and Gold Plus certified. But I ended up going with this Seasonic Focus because it had a lot of good reviews and seemed fine. So you could save $30 there. I ended up getting that one though. Then for storage, you definitely want to get an SSD drive. And you want to get PCI. These are all PCI hard drives. Sometimes in some you'll get an option for like a SATA SSD, or you don't want to get SATA as the older technology, so you definitely want to get the PCI level technology. And this one is like the best option overall. This would be an example where you could spend an extra $40 and get twice the upload download capability, but frankly it's like 3 gigs a second, so at this level, so you just don't need it. I mean, you don't need it to be faster. So I just went ahead and got that cheaper hard drive. Now, technically you don't need the CPU cooler because the processor comes with one, but because they don't let you take that out over at with the building sequence here on NewEgg, you have to pick a heatsink, so you're spending an extra $40 that you really don't need to spend. So this is definitely a downside. We'll get to that in a second. I elected to go with this Cooler Master version because it's like $1 or $2 more than the most popular version, and it's a newer generation. You see, this one is 212E. This one's 212S. So this one's newer. It's got good reviews, and it's only $1 more. So I went ahead and got that one, and you saw it. It's a pretty huge heatsink. It is bigger than the one you get with the processor, but who cares? Now, for the operating system, you could also save money and do your own OEM key. I used to get them from eBay and Amazon, or not Amazon, eBay and Bonanza. You can't get them from those places anymore, so you have to do a search for Windows 10 Home OEM key, 64-bit OEM. And you can get them from like foreign websites for something like $40 or $45 or something like that. So you could save like $60 because Microsoft sells them for like $100 and Newegg is selling for more to make money. And then they sell the Pro version for a lot more, and so it's just kind of you don't need Pro. I've always used Pro, but I looked it up recently, and the features that come with Pro are like enterprise level features that nobody cares about. So you really just need to get home, save some money, and it's. I mean, I went ahead and did this because I just wanted them to do it for me, and I did not want to have to mess with it myself. Because when you buy the OEM key, then ENIAC here, this service will kit it for you. They'll install Windows for you and run all the updates and stuff like that. So all those features, which are most of the cheapest features with the PC building service, comes to $1760 or so, and you could save a little bit of money on a different power supply with less reviews. And there might have been some like, oh, you could save a couple $100 on a video card for sure, but I don't know, that's kind of a conflicting one. If you drop down to a weaker video card, you could definitely get the cheapest high performing machine possible from Newegg. But in terms of cheapest high performing machine that's going to be kit for you, um, these were all the cheapest options. This is the cheapest option. This was the cheapest. This is like $1 extra, so that's nothing. So you could save $30 here on the power supply, and you could save $200 on the video card. So you could save like $230 and still get it built for you. So that's $530. So $1530. So the cheapest you could spend with this service is $1,530. So that's pretty good. But then if you want a decent graphics card, you're going to be spending 17 in a highly rated power supply, then you're going to be spending 1760. So that's what I did after tax, and tax adds a lot. It came out to like $1,900. So that's the most I've ever spent on a PC. But I haven't had a PC and I haven't gotten a new PC in like 10 years, so it's going to last me a while. And for the rest of my like processing needs, like you don't need the best processor necessarily. For the rest of my processing needs, I can just buy new VPS machines for $300 and just keep connecting to them down here. I got a new one over here, and I label them now different colors. So I call this one the red server, and so this is a new one I got from eBay recently at the same time, and I'll be doing a video on that one soon. And the new thing I'm going to be developing in that machine, I'll show it to you guys on screen. So yeah, you don't need the very best processor. You just need a workstation that's going to allow you to manage all your other workstations. And you need more power. Just buy more VPS machines with i5 Generation 4 processors. Anyways, so this is what I did, and that's what I got. I showed you guys the machine. Now, when I was preparing this video, I was also talking about, I looked at Micro Center, and Micro Center had a really good deal on certain pieces of hardware, but then they tried to get you to spend like $1,000 on a video card, and that's when the price got crazy. So I abandoned that. I tried to look at Fry's, but they're out of business. So the only other thing is retail. The custom services are outrageous. The only other thing is retail. And the best option retail is the HP Omen Ryzen 5. As you guys know, I really appreciate the HP VPS machines that I purchased, the 800 GS1s. And so HP makes really great retail hardware, computer hardware. And their HP Omen is actually really cost effective for the hardware that it comes with. Excuse me. Now, if you were to look at the official HP page, you would find very different pricing structures. Like if we were to look at the HP store, for example, under PCs, gaming PCs, and you have to look at gaming PCs if you want a decent graphics card. You can get better CPU and RAM for using the term workstation. But like I was saying before, if you have an integrated graphics card, then you're going to run into problems because if anything on screen gets too heavy to handle, you'll experience chop or maybe even screen flashes. Sorry, I was looking for the. I guess it's this one. This model comes with a fan on the front of the tower, so I wanted to get this one. So when you look at their official store for this line, this 30L line, they don't actually show the i5, and on that variation, it doesn't have the forward fan. And so these other ones are all Intel-based machines, and this is one of the huge problems with Amazon is that vendors have a lot to offer out there, but Amazon stores for vendors are absolutely horrible. The navigation is terrible. Like you can never find anything. Everything is designed to look graphically pleasing, but you can't actually just see the products properly, and see them listed properly. It's a huge pain. So this one is the i7 the Intel variation of the Omen. And it kind of leads you to believe that you're purchasing from HP, but you're really just purchasing a type of machine that HP is putting out. And then the vendor is over here, ships from Office Innovation. So the key is you have to find a vendor that sells the right variation of the Omen at the right price. And this is the Intel variation, which is much more expensive for some strange reason than the AMD variation. So this AMD Ryzen 5 variation is literally the exact same as this cheap machine that I showed you guys from the custom PC builder on NewEgg. This one is $1,500. There's 14 in stock, $1,540 from some place called JTech Digital. And this one has the fan on the front of the tower. It's the 30L series, but it's the AMD 30L variation. And you can see other vendors. These guys did a great job with all these features here. So this one comes with 16 gigs for $15,670. But then look, if I go to 32 gigs, the price goes up by $1,000. Like, it's totally insane. Like, not worth it at all. So basically, you got to find somebody who's selling this variation, AMD Ryzen 5, and it's 16 gigs DDR3, 3200. That's the same as the machine that I built just now. Then you got the Geforce Rtx 3060. That's the same exact core card with 12 gigs of RAM. That's literally the exact same as the card that I have in my machine. And so HP has taken this variation of the card and they've somehow made it their own and kitted it all together, 1 terabyte SSD. It's the exact same as the machine I just built, with the exception of less RAM. And so you pretty much just need to go and find a stick of RAM, 16 gigs, 3200. This one's the highest selling for $78. So you could get any of these, probably doesn't matter. So just pick one. This one is probably fine. Just grab this RAM. And so for an extra 80-ish bucks, add that to the price tag, and you're looking at $1,620. So you're looking at a difference of $1,620 to $1,760. So that's roughly, it's close to $150. So if you, all that to say, if you want to get a machine like this for a great price, all pre-built, I already ordered my machine. And I see, the thing is that I did the research on the Omen. What I didn't realize until later was that the Omen doesn't come in just the Intel variation. The problem is that their shop doesn't tell you that because they only show you the Intel variation. But if you look at the AMD variation, it's a whole lot cheaper. So you can grab this machine ready to go, and then a stick of RAM. You just open up the side and just click in that extra stick of RAM. No issues there, right? And you'll spend less. You'll spend 130 or 150 bucks ish less, and you won't have to Nobody's reaching there. Nobody's kitting this stuff together. It's already pre-built, which I really love. If I could go, excuse me, if I could go back a couple weeks, I would just get this machine. So I think it's official. The days of needing to buy a custom, machine and having to assemble it, I think they're probably over. Like, because the variations on the Omen are great enough that you can just get this machine, and you actually will spend less money. So, anyways, just wanted to share that. Let's see, what is this down here? I don't know if the motherboard has Wi-Fi. I'm assuming it does. That would be a good thing to check. I'm assuming it has Bluetooth also. Oh, you can see the RAM here, Hyper 16. Let's see. Hyper. I thought that was a brand. Maybe it's not. Or maybe it's just not on this page. Anyways, you might want to check out some things, like make sure it's got, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi if you need Wi-Fi. I always use a cable. You also want to make sure that you get cables if you need cable, and you just read this stuff carefully. But the point is that you can actually spend less money and spend a whole lot less time, and look how fast this delivery is. That's like that is 2 days. And get this machine. So there you go. 2 ways that you could use to build your own custom PC, and frankly, even as someone who does this kind of stuff more regularly, because I actually make money with computers, it's just so much easier to just buy it ready to go. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions, just let me know. My next videos, I'll be talking about what I'm doing with my my server here. I'll be doing some pretty cool stuff that will be useful for you guys that are running your own servers. So I'll catch you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.